Good morning, subscribers, and welcome. So here we are then, ladies and gentlemen, 1 week before the GCE Year 1 Economics, Micro and Macro papers. And as is customary tradition at this time of year, it's appropriate for me to push out to you my thoughts and predictions as to where the questions and the topic areas may lie. Now, of course, a note of caution at the very beginning of this, ladies and gentlemen. This is not an exact science, and so I would not advise you in any way to simply focus on the areas that I'm going to talk about. However, perhaps these areas that I will mention are more ripe for questions in this particular showing this summer. Now, as ever, if you have any questions for me, geekonomics.co.uk/contact. Follow me on all the usual social media, Twitter, so that's G_economics, Instagram, same thing, and I'll do my very best to reply and respond. Okay, let's get to it, ladies and gents. So, what I will do is, I will give you a brief resume as to what has been on the 2016, 2017, and of course the specimen macro paper that was released in advance of this particular new specification actually being pushed out to schools. We'll have a look at those and then we will consider 2018. At the end of this video, I'll put a still up, or I'll maybe put a link in the description below where you can find this particular document so you can reference that for yourselves. But let's just talk about the areas which we have seen in the past. So, macro 2016. Case study was about China. I think it's interesting, the case studies where they have actually picked to cover. So China and India, 16 and 17. Specimen, Germany and the EU. Where does that leave us? Maybe the United States? Let's consider that for 2018. Key themes. Key themes are quite recurring, I would say. So ER is exchange rates, EG is economic growth. Exchange rates, growth, employment, investment, exports. And then essays, very narrow focus of the essays to date really. So in 2016 it was about reducing unemployment without causing inflation, that whole Phillips curve trade-off. Or the effect of an economy, the effect on an economy when it tries to reduce a budget deficit. So very much fiscal policy there. In 2017, themes again, very similar, growth, exchange rates. Then we had a bit of current account thrown in for good measure. Unemployment, infrastructure and supply side policy. And then falling rates of inflation. I think that's really important, ladies and gentlemen. The question was, what if rates of inflation fall? So remember, when you get questions like that, inflation, even though it might be 1% instead of 5%, that means prices are still rising. And a lot of people fell into that trap on that question by saying, rates of inflation falling, that must mean prices are falling. Take care, take time, think about the question. So read the questions really carefully. And then the essays, the effectiveness of fiscal policy, again, to achieve macro objectives, lovely essay that would have been. Consequences of a fall in the rate of unemployment, fairly straightforward question as well. And remember, in all of your essays, you're always trying to think, okay, so if the examiner has picked out, let's say in this case, unemployment, you need to think, right, what are the consequences of that? And then in your essay, make sure that you focus upon the other macro objectives and say what the influences are on some of the other, if not all, of the macro objectives. And then we go to the specimen paper. If you can't find these, do send me a message. I can send you Mark Scheme's papers, whatever you need. So, key themes were trade balance, economic growth, index numbers, exports, tightening of the labour market. Now, interesting that one about index numbers and the whole interpretation of index numbers. Previous data has been to do with growth and exchange rates. Interesting that they put index numbers on really, I think, and certainly worth looking at in a little detail. And then the essays on this one, an improvement of international competitiveness or Consider unemployment and supply side policies. So unemployment comes up a lot, hasn't it, in recent times. International competitiveness, so we're talking trade, we've got trade here and here. So, and inflation, we've got a little bit of inflation. Have we got inflation somewhere? No, not on an essay. So that leads us then, ladies and gentlemen, to think, right, what might be the key themes in the case study for 2018? So, as I've said, this is by no means an exact science, ladies and gents, so I'm just hypothesizing here. So might it be that the case study might be on the United States? Consider what's gone on there in the last 18 months. Trump, all the policies, and regardless of what you think of President Trump, the economy is fairly, it's growing quite well. Obviously they've got the problem of the twin deficits at the moment, i.e. on the trade and the budget. But apart from that, things are getting done. So might it be that the case study might be on the US? Might it be that we might have similar key themes? Well, if past papers are gone anything to go by, I would say so. So unemployment, economic growth. But, thinking about President Trump and his presidency to date, might it be that there will be something on the twin deficits? Very often it arises in exam papers where the examiners are trying to trick you and fool you into talking about the budget deficit when really it should be talking about the trade deficit and vice versa. So that's certainly something to think about. Think about trade, think about President Trump and his policies and really reining back on trade negotiations. Of course, NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, they're about to make an announcement on that today. And inflation as well, not something which has arisen in great detail in previous case studies. Okay, and then let's think about the essays. So, bar one of the previous essays, I believe, where it was talking about the Turkish economy, they've all been focused and centred upon UK. So, might it be, given what's been in the past, and given where we have come from in the UK in the last year and a half to 2 years, where we've had the Brexit vote, we've had all of the impact on sterling and so forth, might it be that you might get something about a depreciating currency and the impact on the macro objectives on the economy? And then, I'm sure you've noticed this yourselves, the glaring miss here is that there's not yet been anything on monetary policy. So, base rates, money supply to a lesser extent in year one, but certainly base rates and the whole notion of how base rates could be used to control inflation, or whether a reduction in the base rate would lead to cost push inflation in this country, because we obviously 2/3 of everything we import is raw material, and so if we have a depreciation, price of imports go up, and so we build cost push pressures into the economy, upside pressures. So those are my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, on the 2018 case study. As I say, no means an exact science this, but hopefully that's given you a few things to go at in sort of fine-tuning of your revision in the coming days. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. All the very best wishes for the micro next Monday and the macro on the Thursday. And any questions, contact me in the usual way. Bye for now.